My twin sister and I graduated from high school, but our parents gave her a trip to Hawaii, leaving me at home. When they returned, they were shocked to see the expensive car that someone had given me for graduation. My twin sister and I graduated from high school together, but when it came time to celebrate, our parents sent Ashley on a trip to Hawaii while I was left at home. I'm Audrey, and I was born just minutes after Ashley. Those extra minutes seemed to set us on completely different paths. Our parents, Linda and Robert Matthews, lived in a cozy suburban home in Connecticut. Mom worked as a real estate agent, always looking polished with perfectly manicured nails and designer outfits, while Dad ran a small accounting firm, buried in spreadsheets and tax forms most days. On the surface, they looked like any other middle-class family, except for their clear favoritism toward Ashley. I first started noticing the differences when we were about 5 years old. At first, it was so subtle that you might have missed it if you weren't living it daily. While many parents dressed their twins in matching clothes to celebrate their bond, our parents made sure Ashley always stood out. During shopping trips, Ashley would get the latest sneakers, and I'd end up with clearance rack finds. She received authentic Barbie dolls, and I got the cheaper knockoffs. Even our birthday cakes were divided unevenly. Ashley's slice was always bigger, and her pile of presents higher than mine. All these small slides piled up like heavy stones in my pocket. When Ashley got her ears pierced at 6, I wasn't even asked if I wanted mine done. And when she started taking ballet, they claimed we couldn't afford 2 sets of lessons, even though there was always money for Ashley's growing list of activities like gymnastics, piano, art classes, and more. Our early photos told the story. In every family portrait, Ashley was in the center, often dressed in frilly, expensive outfits from upscale boutiques, while I was somewhere in the background wearing discount finds from Target. Sometimes I wondered if maybe they just didn't notice me. At night, I'd lie in bed and stare at the glow-in-the-dark stars on our shared ceiling, only to see that Ashley had twice as many stars on her side. Even the universe seemed to favor her. It wasn't the lack of fancy clothes or toys that hurt, it was the way people listened to her every word while my words went unheard. As we neared school age, I held on to the hope that things might change. I thought that once we were surrounded by teachers and other adults, my parents would finally see us both as equals. I remember the first morning in our new school uniforms. Ashley and I looked identical, same plaid skirt, white blouse, and navy cardigan. For a moment, I believed this could be a fresh start. But then, as Mom snapped a photo, she praised Ashley with, "Ashley, tilt your head a little to the right, perfect." That familiar ache returned. Even in identical clothes, Ashley always seemed to shine brighter. Our classroom was bright and cheerful, filled with alphabet charts and neatly arranged tiny desks. Mrs. Thompson, our teacher, seated us side by side in alphabetical order, and for a brief moment, I felt like someone finally saw us equally. But once school ended, the old routine resumed. Mom's silver SUV would pull up, and without much eye contact, she'd say, "Audrey, go straight home and start your homework." Then she'd turn to Ashley with a bright smile, "Sweetheart, off to ballet on Mondays, piano on Tuesdays, art on Wednesdays, gymnastics on Thursdays, and drama club on Fridays." I would watch them drive away, leaving me in an empty house filled with silence. Determined to earn my parents' attention, I threw myself into my studies. I'd sit at the kitchen table, carefully working through math problems, practicing spelling words, and reading ahead in textbooks. Hours would pass in quiet solitude until I'd hear the garage door open and Ashley's excited chatter about her latest achievement, accompanied by Mom's proud responses echoing down the hall. "Mom, I got an A+ on my history test," I'd say one evening, only to get a distracted, "That's nice, dear," while Mom helped Ashley with her dance bag or admired her new routine. I began to collect every perfect score, every teacher's compliment, and every gold star like precious treasures, hoping that one day they'd light up my parents' eyes as they did for Ashley. Then came the night that changed everything. I was 12, heading to the kitchen for a glass of water after finishing homework, when I overheard my parents talking in the den. Normally, I ignored their late-night conversations, but that night something made me stop and listen. I heard Dad say, "Sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake." Mom asked, "What do you mean?" and Dad replied, "Having twins, Ashley is everything we ever wanted in a daughter, but Audrey, she's just extra." I caught my glass before it could shatter, wishing I could catch my broken heart as easily. In that moment, everything crystallized. They never truly wanted me. I was the unwanted twin, the extra daughter they wished didn't exist. After that night, something inside me shifted. I stopped chasing my parents' approval and focused solely on my studies. Free from the need to please them, my grades improved dramatically. One day in English class, Mrs. Peterson held up my essay on The Great Gatsby and said, "This is exactly the kind of deep thinking I expect." I could see Ashley tense up beside me, her pencil tapping furiously as her face turned red. Similar scenes played out in math, science, and history classes. Every time the teachers praised my work, Ashley's jealousy grew. The tension reached a head in chemistry when Mrs. Rodriguez asked me to tutor other students. That evening, I overheard Ashley complaining to Mom, "The teachers are being mean to me, they always praise Audrey and make me look bad on purpose." The next day, Mom stormed into school, designer handbag in hand, heels clicking on the floor, demanding answers from Principal Williams and Mrs. Chen, our class teacher. "I want to know why your teachers are discriminating against my daughter," Mom demanded. Mrs. Chen calmly showed them both progress logs. "Audrey consistently scores in the top percentile in all subjects," she explained. "Are you saying my Ashley isn't smart?" Mom interrupted. When Mrs. Chen tried to clarify, Mom insisted, "You're clearly biased against my daughter." No amount of evidence could change her mind. By 16, I grew tired of begging for money while watching Ashley get everything effortlessly. I applied for a job at the Coffee Bean, a cute cafe just a few blocks from our house. The work wasn't glamorous, but I loved the independence it gave me, and even my coworkers appreciated having me around. Naturally, Ashley couldn't let me enjoy even this small victory. "Oh my God, you're really going to be a waitress?" she sneered one morning as I put on my uniform. "That's so common," Mom added, sliding another $100 bill across the table to fund Ashley's shopping needs. It all reminded me of a phone call I'd overheard years before, a heated conversation where Mom screamed, "I don't want anything to do with you anymore. You're embarrassing with your tiny house and budget clothes. I've moved on in life." She was talking to her own parents, my grandparents, whom I had never met because they weren't good enough for her new lifestyle. That very evening, while Mom and Ashley were off on another shopping spree, I snuck into Mom's home office and found an address in her do not contact list. The next day, instead of heading to my afternoon shift at the cafe, I took a bus to a small blue house with a well-kept garden. My heart pounded as I walked up the path and knocked on the door. The door opened to reveal an elderly couple. The woman had neatly tied gray hair, and the man wore wire-rimmed glasses. They looked at me in confusion until I said, "Hi, I'm Audrey Matthews. I think you're my grandparents." Their jaws dropped at once. "Oh my God, it's really you," my grandmother whispered, hand to her mouth. They invited me inside, and soon I was sitting in their cozy living room, sipping tea from delicate cups as they marveled at how much I resembled my mother at my age. That first visit led to many more. While I told my parents I was working extra shifts at the cafe, I actually spent hours with my grandparents, bringing them pastries and cookies from work, listening to their stories, and finally feeling seen for who I was. Then came graduation day. The ceremony was a typical Matthews family affair. When my name was called as valedictorian, my parents barely clapped, yet when Ashley walked across the stage, they cheered like she just won an Olympic medal. I wasn't prepared for what followed the next day. At breakfast, Mom practically bounced in her seat and announced, "Girls, we have exciting news, we're celebrating graduation in Hawaii." For a brief moment, my heart lifted with hope. But then Mom turned to me with a voice dripping with false sympathy, "We only got 3 tickets, for you, Ashley, and me. You understand, right? Someone needs to watch the house, and you have your job at the cafe." Ashley barely concealed her smirk as she stirred her orange juice. "Don't worry, sis, I'll send you tons of photos of me living my best life on the beach," she teased. The next morning, I watched from the front door as they loaded expensive luggage into a taxi. Ashley waved dramatically as the taxi drove off. Once they were out of sight, I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and called my grandparents. The tears I had held back finally spilled over as I heard Grandma's gentle voice on the other end. They flew off to Hawaii without me. I barely made it out between sobs. I was left behind like I didn't matter at all. "Oh, sweetheart," came Grandma's soft yet steady voice over the phone. "Come on over right now and let's have our own graduation celebration." I drove to their house, still wiping away tears. As I turned onto their street, something unusual caught my eye, a brand new Mercedes C-Class sedan parked in their driveway, shining in the summer sun. It looked so out of place next to their modest home. "Whose car is that?" I asked as I stepped up to the front porch. Grandpa's eyes sparkled as he held up a set of keys. "It's yours. Happy graduation, Audrey." I stood frozen, mouth agape. Surely I must have misheard. What? But how? "Come sit down, dear," Grandma said, patting the porch swing. "We have something to tell you." They explained that after your mom cut ties with them, they had quietly invested their savings in several tech startups. The returns had been impressive, but they continued to live simply. "Your mother left us because she thought we were too poor, too beneath her," Grandpa said, shaking his head. "The irony is, we're now probably wealthier than she is, we just don't feel the need to flaunt it. We've been waiting for the right moment to help you," Grandma added. I hugged them tightly, overwhelmed by their generosity and warmth. Inside, they had prepared a lovely graduation lunch. The dining room was set with their best china and a congratulations graduate banner hung over homemade lasagna and garlic bread. They asked about my college plans. I told them proudly that I'd been accepted to Princeton on a full academic scholarship, set to start that fall. Their faces lit up with real joy, so different from the lukewarm reactions I'd gotten from my parents. "That's wonderful, dear," Grandpa exclaimed. "And what about housing?" "The scholarship covers that," I replied, adding, "I plan to live on campus." "Nonsense," Grandpa interjected. "We'll get you a nice apartment near campus, safe and comfortable, so you can focus on your studies." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Ashley, sending a photo of herself lounging on a Hawaiian beach with the caption, "Wish you were here." I glanced at the message, then at my grandparents' beaming faces, and finally at the keys to my new car resting next to my plate. For the first time, I didn't feel like the lesser twin. In the 2 weeks that followed, I juggled shifts at the cafe, visits to my grandparents, and preparations for college. Each evening, my phone buzzed with another notification, Ashley posing on different beaches, dining at upscale restaurants, or relaxing by infinity pools. Each photo came with an increasingly cocky caption, "Living my best life, some people vacation in Hawaii, others just serve coffee." Then the day of their return finally arrived. I sat in the living room pretending to read a book, watching through the window as the taxi pulled up. I couldn't help but smile as I saw their reactions unfold in slow motion. Mom stopped so abruptly that Ashley stumbled forward, dropping her designer beach bag onto the driveway. Dad, struggling with their matching expensive luggage, nearly tripped over them both. "What is that?" Mom's high-pitched, sharp voice floated through the open door. She pointed at the Mercedes, her perfectly manicured finger trembling slightly. "Is that a new C-Class?" Dad stammered, jaw hanging open. "The latest model," I replied calmly, taking my time as I walked to the front door. With every step, their confidence seemed to fade, their tan faces losing their glow. When I finally stepped onto the porch, they all turned to stare at me as if I were a ghost. "Whose car is that?" Dad demanded, his face turning red from both the Hawaiian sun and shock. I twirled the keys between my fingers, the same way Ashley used to flaunt her designer purse straps. Ashley let out a short, uncertain laugh. "Yeah, right, like you could afford that on your waitress salary. What did you do, steal it from the cafe? Or are you just parking it for a rich customer?" I savored every word. "Actually," I said firmly, "it was a graduation gift from Grandma and Grandpa." The color drained from Mom's tan face so quickly I thought she might faint. "You know your parents, the ones you were so embarrassed to mention because they were too poor," Dad began, turning to Mom. "Linda, call your parents right now," he ordered in that same demanding tone he used in restaurants. Mom's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, her French manicure catching the sunlight. Without a moment for pleasantries, she dialed the number. When Grandma answered, Mom put the call on speaker. "Where did you get the money for that car?" Mom demanded, her voice echoing across our front yard. I could hear Grandma's calm, slightly amused response, "Oh, hello to you too, dear. I've been enjoying your expensive vacation, and I saw all those lovely photos Ashley posted. The Royal Hawaiian Hotel does look great this time of year." "Don't change the subject," Mom snapped. "How could you afford to buy Audrey a Mercedes?" "Well, sweetheart," Grandma replied with a note of satisfaction, "it appears you underestimated us. Those embarrassing parents you were so ashamed of? They're doing just fine now, more than fine, actually. We're rich." Mom's entire demeanor shifted instantly, her voice becoming syrupy sweet. "Mom, I've been thinking, maybe it's time we put the past behind us. Family is everything, after all." "Is that so?" Grandma's tone was cool. "And speaking of family," Mom's eyes darted toward Ashley, who was already preening. "You have another granddaughter who'd love to know you, a granddaughter who could really use a nice car too. Maybe even something a bit more special." Grandpa's laugh crackled through the speaker. "You mean the granddaughter you just took to Hawaii while leaving Audrey behind?" Mom's face flushed. "That's not, I mean, as grandparents, you should treat both girls equally. They're the same age, it's only fair they get equal gifts." Grandma's voice turned sharp. "That's rich, coming from you, Linda. Parents should love their children equally too. But that's clearly not been the case in your household, has it?" The line went dead. Mom stared at her phone for a moment before turning to me, her expression hardening. "Audrey, you need to give that car to your sister." "Excuse me?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ashley needs a good car for college," Dad chimed in. "She got accepted to State University, she needs reliable transportation. You're just working at a cafe, you don't need anything this fancy." Ashley was already walking toward the Mercedes, hand outstretched. "Give me the keys, sis," she demanded. "You know I'll look better driving it anyway." I couldn't help but laugh at the sheer audacity. "This is my car," I said firmly. "And I'm not giving it to anyone." Dad stepped forward, his face red with anger. "If you don't give that car to your sister right now, you can get out of this house." "Funny you should say that," I replied, striding toward the Mercedes. I popped the trunk open, revealing my packed suitcases and boxes. I'd been ready to leave for days. Their mouths hung open as I pulled an envelope from my purse and held it up. "Oh, and by the way, I won't be serving coffee much longer. I got accepted to Princeton on a full scholarship." Ashley let out a shriek that could have been heard 3 blocks away. Mom stumbled backward as if I'd slapped her, and Dad just stood there, opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. I got into my new car, the leather seat still pristine enough to creak slightly against the windshield. Through the window, I saw their shocked faces and their perfect family fantasy crumble before their eyes. The last few weeks of summer at my grandparents' house were the happiest I'd ever experienced. Every morning, I woke up to the smell of Grandma's coffee and the sound of Grandpa humming as he read the newspaper. There were no walking on eggshells, no competing for attention, no feeling like an unwanted shadow, just peace. Moving to Princeton was bittersweet. I hugged my grandparents goodbye, promising to call every day, and set off in my Mercedes with everything I owned. The drive to New Jersey felt like crossing a boundary between my old life and my new one. My grandparents had found me a lovely little apartment just 10 minutes from campus, nothing flashy, but worlds better than any dorm room. With hardwood floors, big windows, and even a small balcony for studying, they insisted on paying the rent despite my protests. I still wanted some independence, though, so I got a part-time job at a local coffee shop. The irony wasn't lost on me, still serving coffee, but this time by choice rather than necessity. My coworkers were mostly other students, and for the first time, I found myself making real friends. About a month into the semester, one Sunday afternoon, Grandma called with some unexpected news. "Your parents showed up at our door yesterday," she said, and my heart skipped a beat. "What did they want?" I asked. "Oh, the usual," Grandma continued. Linda was all smiles with fake apologies, asking about our financial situation and hinting at Ashley's upcoming birthday. "Your father kept looking around the house, probably trying to guess our net worth." "What did you tell them?" I wondered aloud. Grandpa joined in. "We told them we've already decided what to do with our money, it's all going to you." I could almost picture their stunned faces. "How did they take that?" I asked. Let's just say Linda's smile wasn't so genuine after that, Grandma chuckled. "We asked them not to come back that evening. I blocked their numbers and all their social media accounts. Ashley did the same." I knew what would follow next, sudden declarations of love, regret, offers to start fresh as a family, but I didn't need that kind of family anymore. Now, sitting in my constitutional law class, taking notes and actually enjoying the complexity of the material, I sometimes think about that little girl who used to pray for her parents' love. I wish I could tell her that one day she'd find something better, not just love, but respect, support, and the freedom to be herself. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket, probably my study group confirming our meeting at the library later, or maybe a message from Jake, that cute guy from my psychology class who keeps asking me out for coffee, not at my cafe, thankfully. It was just another normal moment in my life now, no drama, no constant comparisons, no feeling like I wasn't enough. It was just me, my studies, my friends, and a future full of possibilities.